a re lotšheng ka gae nna ke Kwena Moabelo. Ditsela tša Afrika Borwa di tletše ditraka tše dintši tše tsamaišang ditšweletšwa tše kotsi. Ditraka tše ke tšona tše oketšang dikotsi mo mebileng ya rena. Ditsebi di re ge go ka šomiša diterene go tsamaiša ditšweletšwa tše, se ka thuša le go hlabolla ikonomi. Good evening and welcome. Tonight we look at the possible economic benefits of a reliable rail system.
Dinamelwa di kgatha tema e bohlokwa kudu kgolong ya ikonomi ya naga. Dikhamphani tše kgolo di šomiša dinamela go rwala diphatlo tše fapafapanego ka mononageng le moše wa mawatle. Ditsela le tšona di nyeuma dilori ka bogolo bja tšona, mola ka lehlakoreng le lengwe ditimela le tšona di ya tlase le tletlolo.
If you compare the employment by road versus the employment by rail, and we take direct related employment, road far outstrips rail. We create jobs.
These long distances, people get tired driving them. Because it's also heavy, it is then bad for the road as well.
I think we are blessed with very good national roads in the country through Sunrail's initiatives over the years. And the majority of the cargo that we have is really moved on these major freight corridors.
Kgetho ya dinamelwa tša go rwala dithoto ga e dirwe fela go lebeletše go bitšwa ga mašeleng. Tše dingwe tša dikhamphani di kgetha gare ga mekgwa e mebedi di lebeletše mabaka go swana le nako, potego le polokego gare ga tše dingwe. Peter Tsoai ke mootledi wa lori yo a ralalago naga ka bophara go rwala makhura a difatanaga. Le ge go itaetša bontši ba dikhamphani bo kgetha dilori go rwala dithoto, baotledi ba lla ka bašomiši ba bangwe ba ditsela.
It's about 15 years. If I'm not mistaken, Meroko ko dirang kwa go transport fuel into the depots and in garages. I can say the whole of South Africa. Then ntho e monate ka mmereko wa rona ke nagana gore ke mmereko o sena stress. The only ntho ke ka buang ka rona batho ba kganang dilori rena le problem engwe e serase ga golo fela ya gore mo ditseleng tsa rona tse di berekisang gona le batho ba ka reng motlhomong ba itira ka ro ba itse betere go rena le rona mogwateng ha re tlo go sheba mo lephateng la batho ba kganang dikoloi tse dinnyane ba leng gore ba tsama ba re fella pelo at any time ba le bala gore okay fine le rona rena le di families tsa rona and re dira mmereko o ileng gore o thusa our nation as a whole.
Ba bangwe ba dumela gore dikotsi tša mebileng di gakatswa ke dilori tša dithoto ka ge baotledi ba tšona ba sepela maeto a matelele gomme seo se ba lapiša mmeleng le menaganong. Efela Peter o dumela gore beng mošomo ba dikhamphani tše dingwe ke bona ba swanelwago ke go šupjwa ka monwana.
Rona mo company ya rona re na le di working hours tse re berekang mo go tsona. We are not actually allowed to exceed more than 14 hours of driving. And re na le di actually breaks re tshwanetse re di etsa after 2 hours. A driver must actually have a 15 to 30 minutes break. So and then when it comes to problem of fatigue, it's something it's controllable. But then most of the drivers actually they don't consider that as much because a pressure from their controllers, I can say that, whereby badula ba ile gore ba mo mmerekong wa bone badula ba pushwa ka mo morago gore no, you have to be kana ko 18 kana ko plekeng 18. So all those things, but rona it's very simple. We've got something like the course that we're attending after 3 months, whereby we are trained, well trained, ka taba ya bodi go control fatigue, go etsa eng, go ikhutsa, go resta to the nearest truck stop, whereby you can have a shower, whatever, and sit down and have a cool drinks, all those things.
Highway Junction mo Harrismith ke fao Peter a šomago gona mengwaga go balelwa le 15. Lefelo le ke fao masomesome a dilori a emago gona go ne a baotledi sebaka sa go ikhutša le go robala. Ge letšatši le dikela go mme leswiswi le swara ke fao lefelo le thomago go nyeuma.
plek ya rona ena le di-facilities tse tsotlhe re na le restaurant re na le di-showers ha o fitla mo fitla o paka lorry you can go and have a shower and then immediately after that you can go to the restaurant and sit down and eat and have some coffee whatever and then immediately you can go and rest for the following morning so that you can start afresh again to be on the road again.
Ka iri ya bohlano mesong ke nako yeo baotledi bao ba ikhuditšego fa ba wela go tsela gape ka polokego ntle le go otlela sebaka se setelele ga baotledi ba dillori ja dithoto hlotlo e nngwe ya bona ke go hloka nako ya go dula le ba malapa a bona ka baka la mošomo wa bona.
The problem is coming from those people who don't actually have time to have some day offs. They are always on the road and then the time actually ba kry-ang ke nako eo ba dirang dilo tse ba dirang ka yona ka tseleng gore no right le rona gore ga di dumelelwa le seng. So but then if maybe the companies and the owners they can actually give some times for the drivers to have a time to go to their families and then that thing actually e ka fela totally all. So and then but it is not all of the truck drivers which are doing that. It's some of them and it's something that actually because it's there for them, those actually who like to do it.
Ben Deysel ke rakgwebo gape ke mahlo a di bona industering ya dilori gomme ke ena mong lefelo le lengwe la mabaka a go ba gona ga lefelo lo ke polokego ya baotledi ba dilori.
Well, our Junction is a facility that we established over the past 18 years to really cater for all the needs of the road transport industry. Truck drivers come here. We have in excess of 1,000 drivers a day coming into the facility. Whether they need food or they need ablutions, clean hygienic ablutions, they need security for their vehicles, or they need fuel or maintenance. We offer all the services and it's a full complete service that we provide to the road transport industry.
Tse dingwe tša ditsebi tša dinamelwa di bona ditimela di bolokegile go feta dilori e fela rakgwebo ye o re dikotsi tša ditseleng tšeo di amago dilori e be e tla ba taba ya maloba le maabane ge nke be baotledi ba hlomphana.
When you listen to the television or you read the newspapers, you see all these fatalities and they always blame the driver. But it's not, the driver's a human being like you and I. Like a Boeing pilot. He's also just a driver of a different type of vehicle. But people do not respect our drivers. They do not respect them in terms of their responsibilities. What happens if a truck driver leaves the road and he runs into a school or into a dam with a vehicle of hazardous goods? He can kill many thousands of people. The driver don't have a co-pilot or a hostess or a bed he can reach. When he leaves from Durban to Joburg, he's on that road 120% concentration for at least 14 to 16 hours. So it's a man with perseverance, with concentration, with the ability to adjust to circumstances, whether it's weather, whether it's traffic, whether it's public holidays. The man has to be on the road for us to be able to get fresh food on the table, to have fuel at our filling stations, to have clothes in our shops. You cannot bring that in by any other mode, but yet the public see that as a nuisance, as a threat to their safety. But I think we need to learn to have mutual respect and to also allow each other the presence on our roads. The roads are not built only for cars, they're built for trucks and cars. And we need to live in harmony with each other.
Transnet Freight ke lefapha le legolo la Transnet yona e rwala merwalo e mogolo e buima kae kapa kae ka mononageng le kontinenteng ka bophara.
The rail infrastructure in this country is an enabler. It's an economic enabler for moving goods and services. It's actually one of the key infrastructure that allows our customers and our markets to grow as a country. We move goods from raw materials such as minerals, iron ore, manganese, coal, for domestic and for international. So for domestic business, for instance, if you think about our power needs, and I'll talk about Eskom, Eskom basically uses coal for power generation.
go ya ka Transnet bona ga bana mathata a go lapa ka ga baotledi go swana le ba dilori.
There is a little aspect of road that takes place where basically it's short hauls, or where the mine is very close to the power station, where you use overheads. But in the main, basically what you want to see is you want to see heavy commodity moving on rail. If you think about the road infrastructure, so to speak, the roads, like the long distance roads, have just been refurbished. That means that you actually want to get value for cars moving on those roads, and not erosion, and not accidents, and not clog-ups. So the rail infrastructure assists in declogging the roads, basically. Because if you have heavy trucks, they're actually a destroyer. The emission problems that happen there, as well as accidents. Because it's long distances, people get tired driving them. Because it's also heavy, it is then bad for the road as well. Rail then helps, therefore, to move long distance commodities. It also is cost effective, if you look at it, from a perspective of the tonnage that you move at a point in time. I mean, if you think of the iron ore trains from Sishen to Saldanha, for instance, we run a 345 wagon train. That is very long, think about it. And if you were running trucks, I cannot even tell you the number of trucks that you'd be moving per day, clogging up the roads. So for us, the rail infrastructure is very key. And I know that we've sort of moved away from rail at a point in time in life. But right now, we know that we have to have a very robust plan of utilizing railway for rail-friendly commodity.
Professor Jackie Walters ke setsebi sa merero ya dinamelwa go tswa University ya Johannesburg. Gomme yena o dumela gore mo ikonoming ya naga bobedi dinamela tše di a hlokagala.
If you look at containerized transportation from Johannesburg to Durban and compare that to road transport, road transport will do that in 7 or 8 or 9 hours, where rail will maybe take a few days. And there's also a lot of transshipment involved in rail transport. You have to transport by road to the rail where it's loaded, and then from there it is shunted again to different directions in the country, and then the other end it has to be offloaded again. Door-to-door transport is offered by road transport, so it suits the cargo owners very well, and also lessens the handling of the equipment, of the containers, and also there's less chances of damage and theft and things getting lost in road transport.
Go ya ka Professor Walters, go na le merwalo yeo e swanelwago ke go tloga tseleng gomme e išwe ditimeleng.
South Africa generates about 1.8 billion tons of cargo movements annually. Of that 1.8 billion tons, about 88% of that tonnage is on road transport. So we are road transport dependent, like many other economies throughout the world are road transport dependent. What we need to do and need to consider is to determine whether any of that cargo and what type of cargo can be moved to rail transport in future.
Le yena o tshwenywa ke taba ya go lapa ga baotledi.
There's legislation about driving hours and the number of hours people should rest in the country. It should just be enforced at the end of the day. And this enforcement is not only the prerogative of the enforcement agencies, but also the truck owners and truck operators to ensure with their organised labour through the unions that this is really enforced. It's important to really manage this properly, otherwise you get people driving for extended hours, never resting, and then you have these accidents.
And we've had studies in the past conducted by the international academics, and they found that at least 82% of the drivers on the road between Durban and Johannesburg are suffering from fatigue. Now, a driver is a human being like any other person. He's not a robot, and the man has normal human needs, and we also need to allow them to rest. But unfortunately, I think due to economic pressures, due to competition, due to the fight for survival in the industry, it becomes very competitive, but unfortunately sometimes too unregulated. If law enforcement functions properly, like in many parts of the world, they will simply insist that a driver rests after 14 hours within a 24-hour cycle.
Transnet e šomiša technology go tiišetša polokego ya nako ya go goroga ga dithoto.
What we've introduced is something called the TVCC, Transnet Value Chain Coordination, where we have everyone in the value chain talking to each other. So we have a customer, and I'll give you one example of a TVCC, where we have with Eskom. So we have a centralized meeting. Even if there's a problem, then everybody is aware of the problem. So that cuts down on expectations, or false expectations, if I may call it that. It actually gives reliability or real-time information.
If you compare the employment by road versus the employment by rail, and now we take direct related employment, road far outstrips rail. We create jobs in the road transport because for every truck on the road, effectively there's 2.7 jobs created. If we look at the drivers, we look at the maintenance staff, we look at the security, we look at the refueling, then we're creating jobs, but yet it's not admitted and it's not recognized by the community at large.
Tona dinamelwa Dipuo Peters le yena o dumela gore didimela di ka kgatha tema ya go feta yeo di kgathago ga bjalo.
Re na le bothata ka gore dithoto mo South Africa di tsamaisiwa ha o sheba dipalopalo 75% ya dithoto tsa mo South Africa re di tsamaisa ka tsela, 25% ke yone e tsamaisiwang ka seporo. Gora gore investment e ANC government e tsentseng go bo Transnet ke gore re tle re kgone go fetola seemo sewa, re kgone go tsaya dithoto tse re di ise ko seporong. Re tshwanetse re fokotse lošo le le diragalang mo ditseleng ka gore ha re ntse re na le ditroko tse dintsintsi tse di tsamayang mo tseleng, o tla itlhela le gore go na le bothata ba gore dikotsi di a direga mo ditseleng, batho ba ba drivang ditrucka tse sometimes le bone ba kgatala and ba na le dinako tse ba di beetsong gore ba tsamaise dithoto tseo. Jaanong ke batla go tlhalosa gore seemo se sa 75%, 25% rail versus road, road versus rail market share. We are prepared to change it, and that is why we have also introduced what we call private sector participation framework. That private sector participation, e re bolela gore go na le diporo tse dingwe tse re ka di neeletsang private sector gore e nne tsone ba di tsamaisang.
It's always a debate between road and rail. But the fact of the matter is there's a place for both. And when it's a bulk commodity with a point-to-point origin and destination, it's logic to have it run by rail. But when it's a break bulk operation, when it's a point-to-point delivery operation where there's no road or rail infrastructure, then you require road to do that. And it's not necessary that we compete with each other. We should rather encourage each other to be profitable, first of all, but secondly, also to be reliable, to also be within safety standards, and to provide an opportunity for both modes.
We're certainly not adverse to trucks. We are just saying that each one has a role, and let's be clear around how these roles are played, so that we can all contribute to the economy.
Well, road and rail complement each other, and you must look at the characteristics of the modes of transport. Road transport is a door-to-door service. It can't carry huge volumes per truck or huge masses per truck, but you can do that on rail. So rail is ideally suited to high volume, high mass products over long distances, and it's typically competitive from about 400, 500 kilometers from origin to destination. Below that, it's mainly road transport. And if you look at road transport, you cannot replace road transport in the city areas or metropolitan areas with rail. It's too compact, the distances are too short. So we will have road transport in the main urban areas and between maybe main metropolitan areas. But over the long distances, longer distance, like say 400 to 500 kilometers, rail has a competitive edge above road transport. But we must also look at what is being transported. You can't transport this country's coal on trucks. It's typically a road transport function, or the iron ore on road trucks. It's a rail function. So there's a space for each one of the two, and they complement each other.
We do have challenges here and there because, as I did say, some of the rolling stock is still old and is still being phased out. So you may have certain failures. You may have other externalities as well. Cable theft is one big one. And I know that when the Gautrain talked about it, the country moved. When we used to talk about the troubles that we were having with cable theft, nobody would listen. I mean, we went to lengths to talk to authorities to say, help us out here. It's a major chronic thing. If someone cuts the cable, there's nothing we can do about it. You know, so those are some of the challenges that we have.
I've had the privilege of traveling extensively, and I really believe, especially from a national route perspective, we can compete with anybody in the world. We really can. The challenge, though, is that we maintain it and improve upon that. And as the economy grows, as the needs of our country grows, we need to upgrade our infrastructure. And I do not want to go down the debate about Sunrail or the e-tolling or the tolls, the need of tolls. We need roads. We need economic activity.
I think we are blessed with very good national roads in the country through Sunrail's initiatives over the years. And the majority of the cargo that we have is really moved on these major freight corridors. The problem that we do have is that the feeder roads, the provincial roads, major provincial roads, many of them are not in a good condition. A lot of the cargo originates not only in the cities but also in the provinces. Apart from the main corridors, the main national road system. So we need to focus on the primary secondary roads and upgrade them to carry this type of cargo. And if you look at the freight logistics strategy, the growth in the cargo in these provincial areas are much higher than on the main corridors. So it's important that we get this right, that we do focus also on these main provincial roads and upgrade them to handle this cargo at this point in time.
Bobedi dinamelwa tše di na le mekgola e fapanego e bohlokwa gomme ikonomi ya rena ga ena go tšwelela ntle le thušo ya ye nngwe le ditsebi di dumellana le seo. Maitshwaro a maleba le hlomphano tseleng di bohlokwa go fokotša maho le dikotsi.
E wele temana ya lekgono a re kopaneng gape beke e tlang ka 6 o'clock mathapama ka labone gona mo SABC 2. E fela pele re tšwa ka magoro gopola ge ba go na le ditaba tšeo le ratang gore di tšweletše o ka re ngwalela go Leihlo la Sechaba @sabc.co.za goba o remela fax go 086 613 1227. Gape o ka re etela go Facebook. Please like our page on Facebook. Go kwa ka lenano la rena le latelang theletša Lesedi FM, Motsweding FM le Thobela FM ka labone mesong go tloa ka iri ya senyane. Ga ebe khutšo le šebešebe go Maafrika Borwa ka moka.